Virtual worlds are vast and have many secrets, and games about the journey to finding those secrets. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, the top 15 exploration games of 2022. Starting off at number 15, it's Sengoku Dynasty, a game that looks to sort of bend genres and create a survival city builder. Now, obviously, it would be impossible to do that without a massive exploration element, considering it looks like they're taking more of a you walk around and do everything that you would need to do to create a city rather than plopping stuff down with a cursor. This is a very pretty game. Everything I've seen of it shows these amazing landscapes, and you're going to be going to have to go through them with a fine-tooth comb to really master this game. This is one that I think has just a huge amount of potential, and I'm really excited to see it, because between being a kind of city building survival game, it's an RPG, it's a life sim. I mean, there's a lot going on here, and it really looks like it's sort of putting together a cohesive product, which the more genres you start throwing in, the less likely that is. I can't wait to play this. It's coming out sometime this year, currently slated for Steam, hopefully on other platforms as well this year. At number 14 is Stray, a really interesting game in which you play as a cat that has to explore, survive, and find a way back to its family in a futuristic cyberpunk world in which there are no human beings. It's populated fully by robots, and you, as a cat, explore this. It's a huge city which is densely compressed, modeled after Kowloon Walled City, which doesn't exist anymore, but if you're interested in looking at some very densely, completely chaotic, like built without plan in a tiny area straight up, look up pictures of that place, because you can definitely see that in this game. Also, you play as a cat, which is, it's a completely different movement paradigm. Stray is coming to PlayStation 4 and 5 as well as Windows sometime this year. At number 13 is Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. It is a pretty looking game. It's definitely got a great world to explore. The real question is it just going to be a Ubisoft game where you're finding towers and destroying bases of your enemies? Hopefully it's more, because honestly, it is a very cool setting. Like, the potential for an exploration-based open world game based entirely off of this setting is pretty high. I've definitely got my fingers crossed for that, but I don't have a set of expectations for this really at all. Would be nice if it turned out to be good. Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora is coming to Xbox Series, PlayStation 5, PC, and streaming sometime this year. At number 12 is Pokémon Legends Arceus, which switches up the Pokémon formula a pretty fair amount, and in doing so creates a very intriguing game with a different set of exploration goals. I'm not going to do a lot to explain the setting. It's a game that's already out, and I highly recommend playing it and being able to get into it yourself. But there's a time travel element, and you go way back to the Pokemon world equivalent of the Muromachi period. And it's actually really interesting to see the Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl map in such a different context. And it's interesting to see some of the historical things that they've managed to cook up involving it. It's kind of like what would happen if you combine Pokemon with Breath of the Wild. And while that may sound odd, it really works. It's not that I don't want them to stop making mainline Pokemon games, but I would love to see more games like this as well. Pokémon Legends Arceus is out on Nintendo Switch now. And number 11 is Hogwarts Legacy, which is an action RPG, but fact of the matter is a lot of people are going to be interested in playing this game just to sort of look around Hogwarts. They've essentially created a full Hogwarts to run around in, and for a lot of people that is probably one of the best locations you could set a game in for exploration purposes. Hogwarts Legacy is coming to the PlayStations, the Xboxes, Windows, and Switch late in the year. At number 10 is LEGO Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, a massive, sprawling, 9-movie-wide game that gives you access to pretty much every Star Wars mainline story, as playable through an updated but still familiar LEGO style. Probably the thing that I would say you could spotlight the most is how much better and more interesting combat is in this game. Your melee stuff, your lightsaber fights, it just feels a lot better, and your shooting stuff feels more like an over-the-shoulder, third-person shooter with some mild cover elements that don't go over completely well, but generally it's more fun to play, in my opinion, than previous gunplay in the LEGO series. Overall, this is just a big celebration of the entire Star Wars saga. 9 is a terrible film, nothing can be done about that, but this is an overall good package. It doesn't take itself too seriously, it makes a lot of jokes, and the gameplay is very fun. If you're looking for a Star Wars collectathon, this is pretty much the definitive one, and it updates the formula just enough to where it feels modern and we don't lose anything in the process. LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is available now. At number 9 is Hollow Knight Silksong, a game that was announced in 2019, but we really haven't seen much about it. It was originally planned as a DLC that would be added into the original Hollow Knight's narrative and world, but Silksong looks to be its own standalone product. In terms of exploration, Metroidvania games are a great genre for that, but Hollow Knight really did a great job establishing a rich world. There are some minor modifications here. You're playing as a character called Hornet, who instead of using souls uses silk, which obviously sounds different but may also be the same thing. We'll see. I would guess that silk is probably generated in a slightly different way and has different narrative implications, but we'll see. It's more Hollow Knight. That's just something that fans of this genre are likely rather excited for. The game was rumored to come out back in February, but obviously we don't have the game yet. All official sources still point to 2022 though, and we'll be seeing it on PC and Switch. At number 8 is The Day Before, an open-world zombie game that is heavily based in exploration. For one, you're not just attempting to survive yourself, but a lot of the point is to ensure that a colony of survivors can continue to survive and rebuild. In the meantime, you can see some stuff that, when you're set in a larger city setting, looks a little like The Division, although I don't know exactly how analogous it is to that. I don't know, it looks like a really interesting game with a very detailed world, with a lot of special detail paid to the vehicles. That's how they want you to sort of venture through the countryside and see what you can find. The Day Before is coming to the Xbox Series, PlayStation 5, and PC June 21st. At number 7 is A Plague Tale Requiem, a continuation of the first game. Requiem takes place far south of the original, where Amica and Hugo have started a new life, attempting to control Hugo's curse, but his powers reawaken and the whole rat thing happens again. There's going to be a little more focus on combat this time around. Amica can use a crossbow, for instance, and has developed some skills in terms of being able to defend them. It looks like a really interesting continuation, and it will be landing on the Xbox Series, PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, and PC later in the year. Number 6, we've gotten a little bit more information about, but not a lot. This is the first open world Sonic game, and Sega is being very, very tight-lipped as to what's going on exactly with it. They have informed that there will be a lot of new options for Sonic's movement, which is to be expected because they have moved again to open world. It's possibly a very good new direction too, as they learned their lesson on delaying games though. Instead of trying to rush this thing out in time for Sonic's 30th anniversary like they did with the 15th anniversary in Sonic 2006, which was a disaster. They've delayed it, they've sat on it, they've worked on it, and I think that's going to be overall much better for the game. We don't have a release date exactly, but it should be landing on all major platforms later in the year. And number 5 is Forspoken, a game that, to be frank, might set the standard in terms of the type of open world Sonic Frontiers might be looking to try to do. It is this big open world game in which the traversal is fast and parkour oriented. But on top of that, it's also a narrative driven adventure, which comes to us from an internal studio at Square Enix that is made up of people who were working on Final Fantasy 15. It's a game that is only coming to PlayStation 5 and PC, and is apparently going to release on October 11th. And number 4 is God of War Ragnarok, which not only changes the season you're dealing with, basically everything is covered in snow, but it also allows you to explore all 9 realms, which was something that people were kind of expecting in the first game, but then found out that the whole game didn't take place across all 9 realms. This time it does, and it will also conclude the story that was begun in 2018. Of course, God of War 2018 was such a fantastic game, and I think we're all heavily anticipating this one. It is coming to both PlayStation 4 and 5 sometime later in the year. And number 3, Horizon Forbidden West, a game that's already out and proven itself to be quite an interesting title. It, of course, continued the story of Horizon Zero Dawn. The game basically improved on every element of the original and incorporated a lot of things that made it feel not necessarily the same in terms of tone, but in terms of progression, like Witcher 3, which is always a good place to start. They've also patched it recently, which improved the loot mechanics, and to be frank, pretty much everything was already enjoyable anyways. Seems to only be getting better, and a great open world is detailed, beautiful, and continues the story very well. Horizon Forbidden West is out on PlayStation 4 and 5 now. And number 2 is Elden Ring, which I don't know what else we can say about Elden Ring. We have covered this game extensively on this channel. It certainly has done something to progress the idea of an open world, giving us more novel ways to experience missions and lore and all the things that we've come to expect from a Dark Souls game in the context of an open world. And it's really just chock full of all of that. Elden Ring is already out on everything. If you haven't played it or haven't thought of playing it or somehow haven't heard of it, I don't know how you would be watching this, because if you watch our videos, you've heard plenty about Elden Ring at this point. And at number 1 is Starfield, a Skyrim in space coming to us from Bethesda. They're attempting to ground Starfield in a slightly more science-oriented general world. However, I have my reservations that it's going to be particularly realistic, and instead will probably be exactly what they've said, Skyrim in space. I don't think that is a bad thing, though. Skyrim is, of course, one of the premier RPGs of all time, and if Starfield manages to do that for sci-fi, I think most of us are there. Starfield is launching on the 11th anniversary of Skyrim, November 11th, 2022, to PC and the Xbox Series. That's all for today. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first, of course, is subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter, Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time, right here on gameranx.